Welcome back. So we have something new. I'm going to try some silicone molds. I'm going to do a matching tumbler with these molds. It's going to be a beach theme. So in this video, I'm going to be jumping back and forth between the notebook silicone molds and the tumblers because I'm doing them kind of simultaneously, oh my gosh, I can't say that word. I'm doing them at the same time. So I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between the silicone notebook covers and the tumblers. So I'm starting off with 40 mLs of epoxy in each of those cups. You're going to need quite a bit. And I am mixing the colors that I want to use. So I'm going to do some browns for the sand. I'm going to do a creamy white color and then some turquoisey and blues. And then I'm going to start pouring, starting at the bottom, not in a straight line, but on a curve, kind of like a hill, starting with my browns, my sandy color, and then gradually moving up in colors. And then over the top of these glitters, once I have them down and shifted around and settled in, I'm going to start putting a white foam swirl, or I guess I'm trying to create like waves. So this is going to be kind of a long process. I'm going to speed it up so this video doesn't turn out to be an hour long and you can just watch the process. So right now I'm putting my glitter colors that I've poured into the epoxy that I've already stirred, and I'm just blending those up the silicone mat, and eventually I'm going to add the white waves. Now that I've poured all those glitters in and shifted it around and kind of used my hands to use gravity to get those glitters to settle and blend out, I'm putting in the white waves, and I'm going to blow those with a heat gun to get them to move, and then they're going to kind of they're gonna look like lace. So you can see the little lace white container I have in the upper right hand corner. That's what I'm using. It is from Mermaid Trash, and I will link everything I'm using below. And when you apply heat to these, it blows out and it just makes it look like a really cool foam color. Now, eventually you're gonna see me scrape off the white on the top, which was supposed to be clouds, and I didn't like it, not one little bit. So I messed around with it, and then I thought I could make it work, and it just didn't. And I'm like, nah, I gotta get rid of it. So I'm gonna scrape that part off. Okay, after I scraped off those clouds that I didn't like, I cleaned up my area, and I'm just letting those silicone mats sit for a good 48 hours. That epoxy is not a quick setting epoxy, so I don't want to touch it too much because then it'll lose its form and it'll start to bend a little bit. So immediately when I'm done with that, I'm using the leftover color that I just used for the silicone mats, and I'm just flipping it. I'm just taking it right over to the tumbler that I've already spray painted ombre 3 different colors. So on the bottom I spray painted a brown, and I'll link all these paint colors below. And then on the top it's a blue, and in the middle it's a creamy color. And I'm using the exact same glitters that I just created with the epoxy pour, and I am lining those up, layering them in the same order that I did the silicone mat, working from the bottom all the way up to the tumbler. And I'm going to apply some heat, and then I'm going to pick up the tumbler and move it around a little bit to let gravity do its work to get those all blended, and then I'm going to put the tumbler back on the turner, and then I'm going to apply the waves. So everything I'm doing with this tumbler is the exact same order that I did with a silicone mat. With the tumbler, once you start applying the heat, you want to spin your tumbler one direction, let the heat kind of shift the glitters around and the foam around, and then you want to spin it the other direction and keep spinning your tumbler back and forth depending on, you know, how much it starts to swirl around the tumbler, because you don't want it to be just a whole bunch of skinny lines rotating around your tumbler. You want it to create these waves and these really cool shapes. And this is what it looks like after you spin your tumbler back and forth, different directions. Eventually you get an appearance that really does look like waves are rushing up over the top, and the foam is coming down and it's twisting, you know, inside itself. So it turns out pretty cool. I love doing this. All right, so now we're back to the mats. So this is after they've sat for about 48 hours, and I take the silicone mold off. And I've struggled with keeping epoxy off the back of my when I take things out of the silicone mats and then I put epoxy on the top of it, it runs down and it drips, and then I have a problem on the back side. So I put some tape, it's just painter's tape that I stuck to the back, and then I just cut off around the sides. That way when the epoxy falls off the top of my notebook cover there, it won't gunk up the back of it and make it really difficult to clean up. So here I'm just placing the tape, cutting off the excess, getting it ready to apply my vinyl words, and then I'm going to put a layer of epoxy right over the top. These little things I'm sticking in the holes, those are silicone mold plugs, and I got those off of Amazon. I'll link those below. This is the first time using them, so I hope that it turns out good. What I should have done is maybe cut the holes, used my scissors to cut the tape out of those holes, and then flip the plugs upside down. But I was worried that they would go too far into the hole and then my epoxy would drip into the hole anyway. So this is an experiment, and we'll see how it turns out in the end. Once everything is how I like it, I'm going to start applying my vinyl. I have to take those plugs back out to apply my vinyl. I was just playing around to see how they fit in there. So I take the plugs out to apply my vinyl. I'm going to do a retirement saying, and then I'm going to add a little beach chair, and I'm going to put some little flip-flops and some little birds on one side. I forgot to record. I didn't push record when I was applying the flip-flops and the birds to the right, the piece on the right side, which is going to be the back of my notebook cover. So all you're going to see me do is apply the chair, the umbrella, and then the retirement words to what's going to be the front side of the notebook cover. And I had some little teeny seashells that I was thinking about putting on there, and I thought they would look cute, and I was playing around with placement. And then I thought, the person I give this to, you know, if she decides to actually use this notebook and maybe pop it in her purse and take it with her somewhere, those little shells are gonna scrape something or cause issues. So I just left the shells off, and it's just gonna be a nice smooth surface. That way, if she wants to take it with her wherever she goes, she can go ahead and do that. Okay, so now you can see the little birds and the flip-flops on the other side. I think that looks super cute. So now that I have the vinyl applied, I'm ready to put my plugs back in, and I'm gonna elevate I'm going to elevate these two pieces over the top of some glitter. I didn't have a box or anything that would hold it perfectly, and so I thought, oh, look I have all these little glitter bottles that I can use. That's perfect. So I'll just put 4 under each of these pieces, elevate them. That way the epoxy will just roll right off. And then I wound up creating a huge disastrous mess, but I'm just gonna have to leave it for myself and clean it up in the morning. It's okay, it's fine, everything's fine, everything's gonna be fine. So it looks all grand right now, and then you'll see how I mess it up here in a second. So I'm elevating both pieces, and then I'm going to pour the epoxy right over the top. So I'm gonna stop talking and speed this video up just a little bit so you can see how I pour that epoxy. Okay, everything is level. I double checked with my leveler. I'm pouring the epoxy over the top. I'm just gonna let it just sit and level out just a little bit. And then I'm gonna, this is where, this is where things start to go a little bit wrong. So just to finish leveling, I'm gonna pick these two pieces up and I'm going to move them around. However, I forgot to grab a container to dump the excess epoxy into as it rolls off this epoxy mold piece here. So what happens is I just have to drop it right there on the table. I had nowhere to put it. So my garbage can wasn't close by and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm stuck now. I have this in my hand. What do I do? So I'm just letting it drop right in between my little glitter bottles, all around my glitter bottles. And I think I might have 2 glitter bottles literally stuck to the counter tomorrow morning, but it's okay, it's fine. I can always dump those into another glitter bottle. As long as I was able to save the epoxy pour onto my piece and make sure that that was nice and pretty, everything is good. So I think it's gonna be okay. Okay, so now that you've had your excess roll off your 2 pieces, you can just let those sit and level out. And before you walk away, make sure you take your torch and pop those bubbles and it'll be good to go the following day. While waiting for that epoxy to cure, I'm gonna go ahead and apply epoxy to my tumblers. So I know I only showed one in the video, but I did actually make 2 of these tumblers because I had enough product left over for 2 of them. So the one that I'm applying epoxy to, the one that I just did first, that one has a little bubble of glitter that got stuck there at the top. So after I apply the epoxy, I'm gonna put more glitter in between that top portion and the middle section because the glitter shifted. So it got pulled away from that one section right there where I'm applying more glitter and it shifted up to the top. And when you look at the tumbler, you can tell that there's a heavy amount of glitter at the top. So I'm just leveling that out, making it even, making it blend seamlessly. Looky, looky, they turned out so pretty. I'm super happy even with the huge disastrous epoxy mess I had all over my table. It took me about an hour to scrape that epoxy off the table. I still have some of it stuck on that little glass grid, but that's okay. That's a whole nother deal. So here we are. I'm picking off just the little bumps that are left on the edge, and I'm going to take a sanding block. I used a 120, and then I had to get a heavier one, an 80 grit, to get that really hard stuck on stuff off of there. So I just was really careful only to sand along the edge, not the portions, not to touch any of the epoxy finish on the front side or the back because it would take that shine away. So I'm just sanding on all the edges on the corner, and then I'm gonna spray with some rubbing alcohol to get all that sanding dust or residue off both pieces. Also, I forgot to mention those experimental silicone plugs they work perfectly. I will definitely be using those for every single project I have with the epoxy, with the silicone molds that has the little holes in them. Those were awesome. So I'll make sure I link those also. Once everything is nice and clean and the sanding residue is gone, you are ready to attach your hardware and put in the paper filling. So I got this hardware, paper, and mold set from Amazon. So I'll link everything below in the description. And they have a whole bunch of different sizes. I want to say this is an A6 or is it A5? A5 is bigger than A6. This is the smaller one, the smaller notebook mold. So I think it's A6. I'll double check before I link it. And so you're just gonna see me apply the hardware. You just pull apart those little rings and slip it into the 3 holes and then put your paper in and it's good to go. It turned out so cute. I think this was one of the funnest projects that I've done so far with the little matching notebook, the beach theme, the matching tumblers, and now all I want to do is just make some more notebooks. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you get inspired to make a notebook, a beach theme, or matching tumblers or whatever, could you please maybe tag me in a post or send me a picture? I would love to see what you do with your projects as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate all of you.